So I'm going to start off, oftentimes when we give these talks, how familiar are you with chiropractic? Just raise your hands. Okay, so we've got like 3 out of you. Okay. So I oftentimes will share stories about different patients. And I'll start off with a study of a young girl who started chiropractic here when she was 21 years old. And she, as a young girl, had a history of gut issues. So where she was often bloated, often had cramping, a lot of pain in her stomach from different foods she was eating, a lot of constipation, and it became to the point where it was affecting her when she'd go over to her friends' houses or go out places because she was eating different foods, and it would affect her. And let's start off with what are some of these gut-brain issues. So I'm sure all of us at some point have had some stomach challenges before. And one of the common things is, cramping, and that can just be something we regularly even get with our cycles as women. But other common things are constipation, bloating, gaseousness, vomiting, ulcers, irritable bowel syndrome, that's what IBS is. There's a lot of different things, and it affects a lot of us, everywhere from our little young patients who come in. I sometimes have little babies. I specialize working with young children, infants, babies, and pregnant moms. And so moms sometimes bring in their little ones because they're concerned their little infant hasn't pooped in like 7 days. And so when I check them, and I'm totally going off topic right now, but when I check them, if their nervous system's really wound up, we do a gentle adjustment to help unwind the nervous system. It's amazing, sometimes you're right there and then they'll poop. But so those, I'm just bringing that up as an example of little infants also having some digestion issues, gut issues. So that's what happens on the gut side of things. But then what happens on the brain side of things, because we're going to talk about that pathway. On the brain side of things, when there are gut issues, can often affect the brain, everything from having more anxiety, depression, even things like autism children, ADHD, to when we're older, things like Parkinson's and Alzheimer's. I actually just adjusted a young woman this morning who was saying she's really concerned from a family history of tremors, and she is wanting to make sure her nervous system is working well so she isn't going to be getting these head tremors, neck and head tremors too. So let's go to the next slide, Alex. So what is this gut-brain connection? Just to, so I get a sense, who's familiar with this? Okay, back in the corner, a little bit. Okay, so let's talk about first the gut. What makes up our gut, just so that we're on the same page? What do you think is stomach, intestines, yeah. So stomach, large intestines, small intestines, the colon, all of those things definitely make up the gut. And there's a direct connection, and there's more and more science covering this now, between the gut and the brain. And that connection is through the nervous system. And the nervous system is continuously sending messages back and forth. So that's why, that the young girl, when she's having those stomach pains from different things she's eating, it's also going to affect her. She's going to have a little more anxiety. And then when she has a little more stress in her life, that's also going to affect her gut. She's going to feel more things in her gut. It's all connected. And so if we can go to the next slide. So how are they connected? Let's start off with the very first thing, and this is a tiny picture, so you probably can't see it very well. But what we want to illustrate is there's the brain up at the top, and there's the gut, at least the bowels, the small intestines, large intestines, right at the bottom here. And these, what look like lines, are basically something called the vagus nerve. Who's heard of the vagus nerve? Okay, more than half of you. So the vagus nerve is a really, really special nerve. It's one of the one of the cranial nerves. It exits right from the brain, and it's the longest cranial nerve. And it travels down from the brain all the way down into our gut. Goes a few other areas too, but that's a very important connection because that's what connects that gut with the brain, specifically that vagus nerve. There's other connections too, but the vagus nerve is very important. So there's also something called chemical mediators. Who has heard of something called neurotransmitters? Awesome. So neurotransmitters are chemicals that are made in the gut. And this area right here are showing some cells from the gut, so lining this area of the gut, there's cells, and they produce neurotransmitters. And those neurotransmitters can be really cool because when they're working in an effective way, they produce something called serotonin, which is like a feel-good kind of drug. It's like a natural drug in the body. So when those are being produced, we're feeling good. So we've had a good meal, it's healthy, and we're feeling pretty good. But if we're lacking in those neurotransmitters and not being produced because there's some issues with our gut, then we're feeling some stress, we're feeling some anxiety, we're feeling some depression. We're lacking in getting those serotonins up to our brain. And those serotonins, those chemical mediators, go through, stimulate the vagus nerve, and it goes right message to the brain. Another thing that happens is, who's heard of the microbiome, or do you know what that is? Anybody? There's another name for it. Where are all those healthy things that are inside?
All the bacteria.
Yes, all the bacteria. Awesome. So our gut bacteria, and there are some people still who think that they need to wipe out or not be in contact with any kind of like germs. But we need those things in our environment. We need those things to get into our body. There's healthy, there's unhealthy, but there's a lot of healthy bacteria that we need. And the microbiome isn't actually just bacteria. It's also, there's viruses, there's parasites, there's fungi, all these things are living inside our gut. And that's something we need. And there's different, our bodies, we don't realize or we don't think about it, but we have certain openings. So through our mouth, our ears, our private areas, there's different ways for all of these things, the microbiome, to just fill up inside our bodies. And one of the main ones we often forget is what? It's like the biggest organ on our body, showing on the outside. Skin, exactly. So all of those things are getting into the body, and we need those things. But we mess with that with certain pharmaceutical drugs we take. We mess with that with some of the ways we eat. We mess with that with, for example, antibiotics. It wipes out all of that good, it wipes out the bad bacteria, but also wipes out all the good bacteria. And that microbiome is like trillions of like little things that are just sitting there in your gut, and you need those things. And there's all kinds of studies, but they see how with children who've been diagnosed with ADHD and autism, especially autism, there's a connection with their gut. And they're also seeing how with some of the vaccinations they do with kids, it clears out that microbiome, and so there's an imbalance there, and that's contributing to a lot of the issues they're seeing now with behavior and with the brain. So we'll go to the next slide. So the role of the nervous system, and that's something we specialize in here as chiropractors, especially the type of chiropractors we are, which are very much nervous system based chiropractors, and this is the vagus nerve that goes, like I said, from the brain down through the body. It goes to a lot of different organs, so it affects a lot of different things. Welcome. Come on in. Sorry. No worries. Oh, can we close?
Hey.
There's a chair right here. And you can have that one there. And I'll do just a quick introduction. Dr. Jacqueline, do a lot of you know each other?
Some of us.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, welcome to have a seat. And also, if any of you want to help yourself to water along the way, help yourself. So I started off with the connection between the gut and the brain. And we're going through the nervous system now, the role of the nervous system and the vagus nerve. And we got a sense of who's heard of the vagus nerve and is familiar with it. But so this is just illustrating the brain connecting through the vagus nerve to, and I want to focus right here, to the gut, specifically small intestines, large intestines. And that is, who's heard of the autonomic nervous system? Awesome, of course. All right, so there's two different parts of the autonomic nervous system. What are the two different parts?
What is sympathetic and then
sympathetic
parasympathetic
and parasympathetic. Okay, so Mary, there's two different parts of an autonomic nervous system. And one is the sympathetic, which is our fight or flight And that's where like it's a stress, like somebody's, you know, stolen our car, and our body goes into a certain state where we're ready to fight. The other side of things is the parasympathetic, which is the rest and digest. And in order for the gut and the brain, this connection to work well, you need to be more in that parasympathetic state, rest, digest, for the gut to be working at its best. When we're in a stress state chronically every day, and you know, with little things, and we don't realize it, and we're all stressed, that's affecting our gut-brain communication, and we don't realize it often. Let's go to the next slide. All right. So this is something that's very specific with chiropractic, what we're really excited about, and this is what we help a lot of everything from young, like I said, I work with infants, all the way up to, I just did this morning, which was 75. But the vagus nerve, where it exits, and I don't know how well you can see this, but so this is the skull up here. These are the two top cervical vertebrae in the neck, and this little yellow stringy thing right here, that's the vagus nerve, longest cranial nerve in the body. So important because it affects so many of our organs, specifically we're talking about right now the gut. It runs so close to those two top bones in the neck, two top vertebrae. And if there is any, even minute, small misalignment in those two bones right there, it can have devastating effects with the vagus nerve. And that's why my passion is I work a lot with kids. I like to be working a lot with kids. Is they will come in and they'll be so wound up, but when we work with reducing the tension with the vagus nerve, so we get things in healthier alignment, the cervical spine here, it's amazing how their nervous system just unwinds and they just get into a calmer state. And as a parent, it's so welcoming for a parent because now their kid has better focus, their kid can do better in school. It's amazing how important that vagus nerve is. Okay, so we'll come back to this, but I just want you to see the vagus nerve, how closely it's related to that upper part of the neck region. All right, so go to the next slide. So we'll go through some strategies now for what can we do to help our gut-brain access that connection. And we're all probably doing a few of these things ourselves, but let's start off with how we can increase the gut bacteria, the microbiome. So what are some things we can do? I know it's right in front of you, but what are some things we can do? Or what are some things you're doing? Let's hear.
Probiotics.
Say, I missed that.
Probiotics.
Probiotics, exactly. So probiotics, we could take those, you know, what we get at the pharmacy, you know, in a pill form. But what are some ways we can do? Other ways we can improve our
Foods that are probiotic.
For sure, that are high in probiotics. And so what is high in probiotics? Probiotics, remember, is just basically when we want to increase the bacteria in our gut, the bacteria is live. Probiotics is basically eating things that are either have something live in them or are fermenting, because then there's a live substance in there. So what is something that you would think of as that we can eat that has, you know, some live stuff? Yogurt, exactly.
Yeah.
Yogurt is full of great probiotics and bacteria. What are some other things? Because yogurt is the first thing I think of. Veggies, we'll get into veggies in a moment. What are some other things that are maybe like fermented?
I always drink, like, anytime I get kombucha, I'm like, yeah, this is good for my gut.
Yeah, that's a good one, for sure, because there's some live things in kombucha, and you can almost taste it when it's like that, get the little fizzle when you have it. You can sense it when you're drinking it. But some other common ones are as well. Has anybody heard of I don't know how to pronounce it.
Kefir?
Kefir?
Yes, I started drinking that like 2 weeks ago.
Okay, fantastic. So yeah, that is also very high in probiotics. Kefir, you just have to watch out. Sometimes these things, there's a lot of sugar in them too. And the sugar, then you have like, the probiotics are helping, but all of that sugar isn't so healthy for the gut. But you can get kefir where it's like really plain and not that much sugar. Some other things, anybody like sauerkraut? It's something my dad loves. I'm just not a big fan. Somebody over there. Sauerkraut is really, really, really high, and it's because it's so fermented. It's really healthy for you, and it helps you build up that gut bacteria. Tempeh, anybody ever eaten tempeh? It's really big in Asia. It's like it's a pressed soybeans, fermented soybean product, and a lot of vegetarians use it. And then there's kimchi. You've probably heard of kimchi, maybe not. It's like a Korean food. For me, it's too spicy, but that is basically fermented vegetables. So that you can look it up. There's a list of things that are very high in probiotics that will help you as well with gut biome. And then there's also, has anybody heard of prebiotic foods? Not as popular as probiotics. So you mentioned vegetables. Those are actually there's some great prebiotic vegetables. It's basically food that we take in that doesn't fully get used up by the body, so it just kind of sits in the intestines, but it's really good for all of that, the microbiome, the bacteria, they eat it up. So we're feeding them healthy stuff when we eat this probiotic food. So it's very hearty foods, things like root vegetables. So, I don't know how to pronounce it, Yikama. So, and certain cultures eat a lot more of that than others, and it's amazing. It's kind of like a cross. Who's had it before? Okay, awesome. It's kind of crunchy, right? If you eat it raw, it's kind of like a cross between like turnip and I don't know how to. It's like a pear,
a radish,
yeah.
Radish and a turnip.
Really healthy.
Yeah.
So that's feeding your microbiome when you eat things like that. But it could be more easy things like bananas is on that list, onions, garlic, leeks. So there's definitely a great list of things that are prebiotics that help your microbiome as well. All right, we'll go to the next slide. Okay, so another strategy for helping your gut-brain health is learning to ride the waves of stress. So I don't like to put up there reduce stress because everybody has stress in their lives. You can't necessarily reduce it or get rid of it, but it's how well you're working through it, dealing with it. And so these are just some examples. One of the things, my husband is the other chiropractor here, we work together. One of the things we learned early on was meditation as a form of working with just moving inwards, working with the breath, and just getting into. Nowadays, more for us, it's prayer. Whatever it is that helps you sort of just get in tune and get you back into that more parasympathetic state where your body's in more of a rest, relaxation, digestion state. And that's because otherwise so much of the day we're running around in that sympathetic state. Okay, so I have here some examples. Some people like yoga. Anybody does yoga? I know. Awesome. Meditation, like I shared. Movement. I'm like a movement junkie. I love exercise. I like to move all the time. That's kind of a meditative state for me when I go for a run. I go to the beach, I go with my dog, and I go for a run. And it helps me just get into that calming state. But for all of you that you just find, I just pray that you all find whatever it is that helps you in terms of riding those waves of stress. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. So the other strategy for gut-brain health, improving your gut, is improving your nutrition. So it's not just probiotics or prebiotics, but it's actually taking a look at how inflammatory is the food that you're eating. So those are the things like the packaged foods, those are the things like the processed foods. Those kinds of foods cause inflammation in our gut. Also, there's increases cortisol. I'll get to that later. But so we want to look for foods that are anti-inflammatory, the opposite of causing inflammation. Inflammation is what causes, cramping, discomfort, and constipation. We want to eat a lot of foods that are anti-inflammatory, and this is a list of some. We also do, every month we put out a blog, and we have one blog, I don't know why it's our most popular blog, is actually what are some of the best anti-inflammatory foods, and for some reason we get a lot of hits on that. So if you want to look it up, it's a good blog. Okay, let's go to the next slide. All right, so the fourth strategy for increasing the gut-brain health, and some of you are familiar with chiropractic, but I'll share this more for others who are not, is how chiropractic care can help. Now this is a crazy looking diagram, but right over here, the brain sits here. This is the spinal cord coming down through here, so you have the spine protecting all the way around that. Off the brain comes at the bottom the vagus nerve, and that goes out to this area. So we're looking at the stomach, the small intestines, large intestines. The nerves from the middle, the thoracic spine, also go into the stomach, and the nerves from the low back go into the large intestines and small intestines. So, and this is where I see, some people will come and see us because they're experiencing low back pain, headaches, neck pain, pain into the arms, what we often think of as helping, chiropractic helping. But what happens is when we do an assessment and we start correcting those areas, specifically those 3 areas I was talking about, is now patients are starting to say, wow, like I'm not having stomach issues anymore, or I'm not getting bloated anymore, I'm not having, it's amazing how when we make the improvements to those areas, there's better nerve flow getting through and better control over the gut. And so that's something we do as chiropractors. We help restore the function between the gut and the brain. We also remember we talked about the 2 autonomic nervous system sides, sympathetic, parasympathetic. Chiropractic, when we do adjustments, I talked about that little baby, how when I adjusted, the nervous system just unwound and they were able to go do a poop. It's because we activate that parasympathetic nervous system, and it's pretty wild. And then also it can help reduce stress, but also, this is really key, is it helps remove interference to that vagus nerve. So any kind of misalignment here, whether that's from a car accident, or whether that's from the birth process itself, where there's a lot of pulling happening on a little baby's neck, or it's just what we do day in, day out, looking at our phones for long periods of time and causing this to be out of alignment. That's something we specialize in and we look out for. All right, next one. Okay, so that's what we do, is help restore nerve function, and I talked about those 3 specific areas. So right here, and it's not uncommon at all for us to have some misalignments through this area here. The thoracic spine, I was just adjusting a mom, no, she's not a mom, but this morning, a woman, and this area here, we've been adjusting, and she was sharing how, oh no, I know what it was, is a pregnant mom. She came in because she had a lot of nausea, and she was vomiting like 2 times a day, a lot of stomach issues, and we started doing adjustments with her, and it's amazing how that just cleared up, because we addressed this area right here, where there was just some tension and stress in the nervous system. Okay, next slide. All right, so I briefly talked about that, how chiropractic care activates the parasympathetic. So this actually illustrates the difference between parasympathetic and sympathetic, for those of you who are not as familiar. So sympathetic, like I said, if somebody ran off with my purse or stole my car, there's a number of different things that are going to happen. My pupils are going to dilate. It's your body goes into this response to ready to fight, and the blood rushes to the extremities, meaning my arms and my legs, so I can run or do what I have to do fast. And very little blood is circulating around my stomach, my gut, so you can't really digest. But then if you move into the parasympathetic, that's where the blood is circulating here. We got good, healthy digestion going on. We're in a more restful, relaxed state. The pupils have come back smaller, and we're able to get those regular functions happening in our body. So our lungs are just nice, easy breathing. We're not gasping or quick to breathe. All right, so next slide, Alex, please. And then I also already talked about how chiropractic can help reduce stress, specifically because we're helping activate the parasympathetic nervous system. All right, next slide. And then I'm coming back to this picture of that vagus nerve, and again, remember that area of the spine, if there's any slight misalignment there, that's where the vagus nerve can be affected, and that's where it's really, really powerful that we make sure there's not interference, because that affects not just the gut, but also the brain. So whether that's anxiety, whether that's kids who have a lot of tension, difficulty with focus, difficulty with learning, that's what we're working on, the vagus nerve, for removing any interference. Okay, and so we come back to case study. So this little girl who started chiropractic care at 21 years old, following a chiropractic assessment where they found that her spine was out of alignment, started a series of adjustments, and all of those digestive issues that she was having, that she'd had since she was a child, small girl, cleared up. And the reason I bring that up is because that little girl was actually me. Alright, let's go to the next slide. So this is a quote from B.J. Palmer, is one of the developers of chiropractic, main developers. And his quote is that we never know how far-reaching something we may think, say, or do today will help affect the lives of millions tomorrow. That's one of the reasons we hold these workshops, is because we find it so important that we're empowering people about their health, because anything, little tidbit you might have learned tonight, I know that you are going to pass that on, whether it's to your own children, your spouse, a friend, a family member, or somebody who's suffering with their health, or even introducing them maybe to about how chiropractic care can help them. That is how we know we're doing something in a far-reaching way. So thank you guys.